We are all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
And hope all of you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Thanks for listening to the program. BDRadio.live is where you find the show. And today on the program, or tonight on the program, as I'm recording this, we got to go and talk about a story that is an ongoing subject. I want to just preface it with this. The last couple of weeks, I've been doing a lot of dating topics. And I know it sounds pretty cynical of me to go ahead and talk about dating when I'm a chronic dater until the last couple of years that I stopped trying. And on the program tonight, I am going to talk about the subject of never getting married, or if you are never married. That is an ongoing and increasing and growing statistic. We're going to talk about that. Psychology Today put out a great story about it. It's no longer a phenomenon. It's just real life. And it's not, oh, we're just seeing some random TikTok videos that say it, or the passport bros. No, it's a real thing. But my issue with that is that I don't want it to be that way. See, I'm not one of these people that thinks it's a good idea for people to just be apart. I don't like men and women not being able to be together. There's something wrong with that. When I go out to the mall and I see a lot of beautiful girls, single, if I would have seen those same girls 20 years ago in the same mall, they would not be single. They would more than likely have somebody on their arm, somebody they were with, or at least dating, because dating was much more rampant 20 years ago. Not anymore. It's changed. And yes, technology has quite a bit to do with it, because some people think, well, we can just connect on social media. We can just be pen pals, or through online dating, and just have the thought, oh, we're just going to find our unicorn out there. But that's not, it goes both ways, and it shouldn't be that way. That's the problem. When I think about it, I say to myself, it was much easier to date when I was younger. I mean, plenty of dates. I wasn't necessarily ready to date. I wasn't a good person to date. Because I had my issues on no trust, lack of trust issues. I started late on dating. I wasn't necessarily sexually active, much as many other guys out there. I was chasing instead of pursuing. And even when I was pursuing, I didn't do enough myself to make myself appealing or desirable to another woman, because I had a lot of weight on me. And I didn't necessarily dress always dapper Don or anything like that. I wasn't doing anything to make the effort. Sometimes I did when I went to the clubs, but it was like I had a lot of things on my mind where I had the perception of who I should be with and who I should be going out with, and feeling like there were certain women that I didn't want to be seeing around because I don't want to get the feeling of what I got in high school, where I would get bullied or ridiculed. And whatever I thought people in high school thought of me still bothered me. The peer pressure lingers on after high school. At least it did for me, well into my 30s. Now? No. In my 40s? No, not anymore. But I remember in my late 20s, a couple of opportunities to meet a girl that was, let me just put it like this, marriage material. I know of at least 2 women for sure. If I could have had my stuff right, I think they absolutely could have been marriage material. But I wasn't ready for them. Wasn't ready. One I met in my late 20s, and one I met in my early 30s. But I was not, one of it was just responsibility. The other part was just feeling like I wasn't going to live up to the expectations. And that was the problem I had too, is that I had expectations that were too high I put on myself, thinking, well, if I'm going to hold on to this girl, I'm going to have to do whatever it takes. And I'm like, I don't have what it takes. So I had a defeatist attitude already. My cynical attitude was already then there. And there was a girl I remember going out to see movies with and getting together a few times, to one of the few times I actually brought her out on a double date with my best friend who is still living in town and his girlfriend, who he now has 2 kids with, and they're still together 20 some odd years later. But the thing is that, I mean, talk about somebody I had that was around my arm that couldn't have been more compatible for me. Like, let me just put it like this. She embodied so many different things that were just make her such a quality woman, a quality individual. She was pretty, dark, long hair, school teacher, great fashion sense, just a good personality, very caring, affectionate, and I don't know, I was intimidated by her. Going to the movies with her, sometimes she could just go ahead and while we're sitting in the theater watching a movie, she'd just run her hands along my arm and make myself get goosebumps because that was a feeling I got from her. But I felt like I lost control. I felt like she had the control in what was going on, which was always what happens, because I never had the balls to take charge and to show and to make sure that I was comfortable. It's a dumb thing, but that's what I was doing wrong. And so being never married, it's one of the regrets. But it wasn't a regret. I mean, the one thing is that she did get married. I did talk to her after she got married, very briefly. But I apologized to her. I said, I let you down. Like, you were so much better. You were such a good woman that I dropped the ball. I failed. And I did. At least I had a chance. And maybe that was the one chance that went away. But because of a lot of things, I have gone through my own issues that have made it pretty impossible for me to go ahead and finally settle down with somebody until it was too late. But what's happening now for guys, younger guys, to have the idea that they can go ahead and be never married, it's a different story. Like, I blame myself. I had opportunities and I wasted and squandered a lot of time. Like, I shouldn't be now more or less in the mindset where I could absolutely know what it takes to be the right kind of guy for a woman. I think I do. At least after all the work and research I've done to understand myself, I think I do. But all I can tell you is that I never really got it all put together right. And I could date now, and I could try to make things work, but I don't want to be doing that. Because it still comes down to the fact that I want a woman to have equal attention or appeal to me. Because even that girl I'm telling you about, I didn't know she really felt the way I wanted to feel. I always thought maybe she could find someone else and she would go away. Because I thought I was expendable. She could move on to somebody else better than me. I really thought that. And when I tried to take charge, I made mistakes. She let me. She let me take some control. But I made mistakes. And I didn't communicate at all with her. Man, I made mistakes. I was a horrible communicator. And I didn't know how to just actually say what I was feeling or what I was thinking. It's like I was afraid to actually say those words. Remember how we talked about last week where there used to be the thing where the dating game went on, where you're supposed to like be the part of the guy, and then eventually when you start settling in with a woman or you're settling in with a man, then the real version of you comes out and it's not the dating version? Well, that's what happened to me. I never allowed myself to be my real self. I never did goblin mode, but that's maybe it would have been better for me, but I don't know. I'm a person that entertains on radio and podcasting. I don't know if I can get that part, but you know what? There's a part of me that would love to still have it. because there's something to be said about the guys that do have it when they're married and they're with a good woman, because there are some great women out there and they are taken. And then you say to yourself, can I have her? Because I mean, I'll tell you, I'll look all the time at different girls that are like, you know, they're taken, or they're just, they inspire. They're just jaw dropping on how fascinating, beautiful, smart, intelligent, outgoing, and how well put together they are, mind, body, and soul. So, as you know, I do Uber part-time, mostly on the weekends. And this weekend, during the Memorial Day weekend, I did take a couple that I'm guessing they were visiting out of town. And I took them from, they were all the way out in Loxahatchee, which is the way out west suburbs of West Palm Beach. Good 20 miles west. I was already out there because I had dropped off a family that had won from West Palm Beach into the farthest west you can go of West Palm Beach. A community in the middle of nowhere called Arden. They have like the home garden kind of thing. It's a nice big community of houses out there, but you're 20 miles from civilization, roughly. And then on the way back, I picked up this couple, a young couple. The house is kind of ramshacky, but I think it was an Airbnb because they didn't look like they were from here. So they were both probably in their early to mid 20s. I want to say the guy might have been, I don't know if he was American or if he was European, but he kind of scraggly haired kind of guy, scraggly curly hair. Also had a bit of facial hair on him. And, you know, he was dressed, you know, casual. So was his girlfriend. And the girlfriend, very little makeup on her, blonde, blue eyes. They're both, listen, they're not like, you know, magazine cover, like jaw dropping gorgeous, but they look like a cute couple. And when I was going ahead and making the drive over, you know, I kept looking in the rearview mirror and I couldn't help but look at both of them. And I just looked at the way she kept looking at him. And it's like, that's that look of like, she's in love. They're like, it was honeymoon phase right there. I don't think they were married. I just think they were like very close. And they were going to the mall I like to go to. And about a good 20-minute ride, I'm playing music and going on. And then, you know, you're just going on their own business. I'm just listening to music and, you know, chomping on gum, sipping water, and working on getting them to where they need to go. I guess really it. Unless they talk to me, I don't talk back really. But I went along and I dropped them off. And right before I dropped them off, she asked a question because about the music I'm playing. Some of it's Spanish. She's asking about Bad Bunny and the popularity of him. And I brought up some other stuff, talking about how Peso Pluma is like the new thing right now. He's the next Bad Bunny, this and that. You know, I was just kind of going along and talking because she was a music fan. He talked about how he's very specific on what music he likes, but she likes to explore different types of music. So something tells me that she probably is very outgoing and very much likes different things and probably introduces this guy to different things. And it was just nice. I was like, you know, I never knew what that was like. And I'll admit, I look at both of them and saying, man, I'm saying to this guy, she's a keeper. Buddy, hold on to her. Something about her tells me that this guy better hold on to her and never let her go. Because I just had a feeling about her. That was it. But does any girl make you feel that way? Does any guy make you feel that way? Let's get into the feature story. So Psychology Today, they take a survey reporting that in 2021, 38% of adults were found to be unpartnered. It was 29% in 1990. And the statistics were driven predominantly by a decline in marriage. And so in the past 50 years, marriage rate has dropped by 60%. That's a study from Pandy in 2023. And by the way, they cite, it's an Axios story called America the Single that talks about it. And the Pew Research Center study, they had a couple of things that came up. There was also a study that they brought up here that talks about various issues when it comes to the problems that are going on with dating relationships and why people are just not together. So there's one study they take here about the share of never married Americans has reached a new high. This is from the Institute of Family Studies. It was published in 2020. They found out 4 major things. Young adults are taking more time to marry. Median age for first-time marriages is 28 for women, 30 for men. It used to be early 20s for both in 1970. Cohabitation is a popular alternative. Living together is a less complicated relationship model that comes with an easy escape hatch. Lower income individuals are now less likely to marry. Starting a family is an expensive proposition, and many Americans feel it would be far too stressful to marry or start a family without financial security. And that's part of the things I also worried about when it came to relationships or getting married. Will the girl I be with want to have children? And when I have been asked the question, did I want children? I said no. And I always have felt that I wanted to have children. The responsibility was just too great. The other part they say is that women prefer a man who is financially stable. When unemployment rates rise, the number of eligible men shrinks. Thus the unicorn that we've talked about. So one of the things that has been talked about why people never marry is the need for control. And that is where I talk about in my case. The capacity to manage, dominate, exercise power over, influence, curb, suppress, or restrain. That sounds manipulative and controlling, but yes, it's true. Never married individuals that I've treated all seem to share stories about being controlled in a way that has left them adamant about never committing to anyone. And like most concepts, the behavior ranges on a continuum from never having a relationship with someone, even if it's short-lived, to never marrying. Mr. Psychologist here is reading me like a book. It's control. Now, the psychologist also says that some of the ones that have never been married that he has treated are doing just fine. This is, by the way, a Dr. Stephen Betchen that is writing the story. So he's talking about some controlling of those individuals that crave control have experienced at least one very controlling or dominating parent. That was a my way or the highway approach. Intrusive, overbearing, infantilizing, or micromanaging also can be a causal factor. And other never marrieds have reported incompetent parents who have repeatedly produced chaos, such as out-of-control spending, leading to bankruptcy and loss. And also parents with addictive behaviors and passing the anxiety, producing chaos onto the children. So now, when there are some that are never married, if they have friends and family and are not in a chronic state of loneliness, there's no reason to assume pathology. We would all like much more control over our world as possible. Some just happen to be more willing to go after it than others. Many of them he has seen are free. Nobody tells them what to do other than a boss, and they rarely experience the feeling of being trapped. They buy what they want whenever they want and take up hobbies when it pleases them. They also tend to hang out with like-minded individuals who can they enjoy life with. That's me. I have family around me. And I really don't need any more the need of like entourages or people to hang out with. I stopped that. And also being trapped, I don't like that being trapped either. He's absolutely right. So do never married people get lonely? Absolutely. But not enough to take the chance of marrying. They have sufficient resources, and most of the ones are financially independent many times are relatively content. In fact, most never married individuals that come to see the psychologist deal with parents or family members who insist that they live a more conventional lifestyle. Not because they're unhappy with their choice of marital status, but a lot of married people cannot say the same. But what we have to realize is that it's coming to be a case much more than you really imagine. And that secondary part is the reason why. Because more guys are just, if we have family around, we're doing well for ourselves. Part of it is the fact that we don't want to share in that success when it's going to get squandered, if we're not going to be around like-minded people. Well, women, in many cases, are not like-minded, which is why they're the opposite sex. When I think about the fact that the idea of getting into a relationship It sounds exciting. It sounds interesting. The love honeymoon part, sure. The commitment part, the sharing part, the time spent, the investment, and having to do things for the sake of the partnership, for the sake of the relationship that you just don't want to do. The thought of being trapped. I'll be honest with you. That is absolutely why I don't feel like getting married, and I never did. I thought I did. When I was around 18 years old, I actually said to myself, I'll probably get married around when I was 35. Because I want to make sure I experience things and do that. But of course, we change our minds. Once I got to my 30s, I knew marriage wasn't in the cards for me. It's funny how some girls I talk to online now, they might ask that question. Why am I not married? Well, I'm a workaholic. Radio is my wife. She doesn't badger me. She might be a cruel mistress, doesn't pay enough, but you know what? I enjoy myself. It allows me to do things like this. There's a story from Wealth of Geeks that brings up also the story about not wanting to get married. This comes back in March. That the writer here talks about, quote, smart men don't get married, end quote. So the writer asks, but what is so smart about not wanting to get married? On the flip side, is marriage really the answer, as society often wants us to believe? So we talked about the Pew Research Center, and 4 in 10 adults between ages 25 and 54 were not married or living with a romantic partner. Why men are choosing not to get married these days? So there are people that were going to bring up their points. They took 12 different reasons here. One says, why let the government get involved? A Reddit user named Casey Ish says, quote, do not need paperwork to affirm I'm in a relationship. I also don't need more paperwork to choose, should I choose not to be with that person anymore. Next is the rise of gender equity. And marriage was initially designed with patriarchal standards in mind. Hell, if you just read the book, Manipulated Man by Esther Vilar, or The Polygamous Sex, same thing. It was supposed to be a certain way. And women enjoyed that role. And women do enjoy the role of being a traditional woman, but they don't want to have the issues of the kids or doing other things. Like, you look on TikTok, there's plenty of women that just don't want to have, they want to be able to have their success, but they want to live off the success of the man. They want to have their own individual success, held on to their own so they can do what they want. So they don't want to be trapped either. But they still want to be catered to. They still want to be supported. They still want the traditional role to be met. And not just by any guy, but a guy that fits the unicorn status. 6-figure income, 6 feet tall, at least packing a 6-inch or 6-pack abs, whatever, right? However you decide to portray that. Women's roles were redesigned to be ones of service, and their position was decidedly lower in the power structure this created. Now, the social expectations of becoming a provider is another thing. Men still feel the societal pressure of becoming the provider in the relationship. And right now, inflation and the economy doesn't make it easy for that. Talk about having less time for a career, a social life killer is another thing that you're not, there's a lot of things you have to sacrifice if you're in a relationship as well. Another person says about normal religious motivations. The concept of marriage was created by religion, a unification under God before tax benefits. That's why the Christians were so angry about gays getting married. So it's not a motivating factor anymore. Loneliness is no longer a factor. And that's because of dating apps, where you're just a swipe away from the next person you're going to be with. That's the idea. I get it. It's an expensive party. And some people will talk about how they were in relationships that lasted 20 years without it. And I don't see what it would have added to me anyway. And it's true to me. Because people are not getting the relationships for the right reasons anymore anyway. It's a shame the younger kids are learning this lesson now. There are still some that date or they try to go out and they try to make a go at it, or they try to be friends with a girl, or the other way around, in order for nothing to happen. That's the other part that's in his too. It's just a shame. And I wish the young kids now, teens, 20s, into the 30s, they didn't get to see this kind of level. The generation that has been succumbed to dating apps and having their iPhone or their phone or your phone in hand at all times, strapped to you. You can't let it go. You can't put it down. You have to look at it all the time. I know it's like that with me too. If I look at my digital well-being in a 16-hour day, I guarantee you I've probably held on to that phone about 15 hours of it. I wouldn't be surprised. But there's not many answers to this. And I think we need to get the story brought up more, and just explain the fact that we can't be living like this. Guys and gals, or, if it's two girls together, fine. Two guys together, fine. But relationships, being there with somebody who was two doting parents, mothers, fathers, or one dominant, one submissive, whatever. One provider, one supporter, right? Something. It would still be nice to have that structure, because there will be a lot more healthy people out there. Love would answer a lot of things. That's why I always worry about all these young people that are trying to get into relationships now, if they fall out of love, and how the young guys are being raised to not be proper men, be gentlemen, and be men that know how to respect and be there for a woman and love a woman as she should be loved. That's a lost art. This program is to make it where you get to go ahead and keep it along, okay? All right, we're going to leave it there. We'll come back next week. Again, all past episodes, ddradio.live. You can also find the show wherever you find podcasts, Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify. Please rate and review yours truly on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I would really appreciate that. It would be very helpful if you did that. And I hope you will consider it, because it would help a lot in the run all the way across. So please go ahead and consider that. That would be great. And also remember, I'm on social media. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at King of Podcasts. And until next week, listen, I'm not going to say anything bad about the couple I had in the car, but you know something? I'm just going to kind of guess. While they're all innocent and lovey-dovey and all honeymoon style together out and about, I'm pretty sure of one thing. When they're alone and no one's watching and they're kind of frisky, they're probably a little depraved and debaucherous.